Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's Rabbi Stephen. It's Rashbi in the house for this week's 10-Minute Torah. But first, as usual, we got some announcements and some accolades. And I think Lawrence Chalfant made a comment on Saturday that this was the 5th or 6th Saturday in a row that we had a minyan and actually had a Torah service. It is becoming more common to have a minyan for Saturday morning and do a Torah service than it is not. And thank you all so much. Thank you for coming. And for the rest of you, show up every now and then. Come, we start services Saturday morning at 9:30. A lot of people seem to wander in at 10. Okay, well, at least you're there for the Torah service. So why don't you come and see what you're missing? Why not? Just come every once in a while and see what you like. The other thing is, March 1st, we're going to participate in the Shabbat Across America. Now, this is a program that's put on by the NJOP, National Jewish Outreach Program. And the idea is to bring people into the synagogue that don't typically come, that don't, either they're not affiliated with a synagogue or they just, don't show up for whatever reason. But we want to create a community. It's the ultimate community. And they say Shabbat Across America. And by the way, that's Canada too. Everybody's going to be doing the same thing. We're all going to be having a Friday night service. And we're going to do a potluck. This is the way we're going to do it. So at 6 o'clock, we'll have our potluck. Please bring a dairy dish. Now, one of the stipulations of the program is that it is a kosher meal. And that's why we're doing it dairy, no meat. So what I'm going to ask, is that when you do bring a dish that's dairy, please do your best to use a pan or anything that has not touched meat. All right, that's where you're on your honor, and you bring it in, no questions, but that's one of the stipulations. And the other thing is that it's going to be a learning service. So we'll be doing some explanations. As you know, I like to keep my services to 1 hour and 15 minutes in my Friday night services. So we'll do some explanations, but we'll still keep that in that time period. And that way there'll be some time after for schmoozing. So stay tuned. We'll be sending out emails. My wife, the Rebbitzin, is going to be doing a punch bowl invitation. So you can see what's going to be brought, what foods are going to be brought, what's not. You can kind of fill in the blanks. And we look forward to seeing you there. Okay, let's talk Torah. First, this week is the portion of Terumah. Now, Terumah, they say, has no equivalent word in English, but it means a portion. It's that which is set aside. And it's set aside either as an offering, as a contribution to the Levites and the Kohanes, which really, they really kind of own no possessions. I mean, some of them have throughout time, but basically they don't have any land. They're just kind of the Levites are scattered around of Israel to minister to the people. The Kohanim are the ones that do the offerings in the temple. So this is kind of for them. But of course, at this point, we have no temple. What there is going to happen is Hashem is telling Moses, build a mishkan, a tabernacle, and it's going to be kind of portable. Now, what was it? It was kind of like IKEA. Y'all, some of you have, those of us that grew up with Tinker Toys and Erector sets, we like to build. So what does IKEA do? It sends you a bunch of stuff and you put it together and voila, a cabinet or something, right? And that's kind of the way the Mishkan was. So you had a couple of people that were craftsmen and they were going to make the pieces that are put together. So, you had the planks, the boards that make the walls. You had curtains. You had poles that kind of hold it together. You had these little sockets, and the tops of the poles were made in such a way that they were kind of like this. And you had two of them like this, and then a socket would fit on top to hold it together. So the idea of Terumah, the portion, where the idea of a portion comes in, is that all the Israelites would contribute to the construction of the Mishkan and the things that went into it. And from this, of course, the sages derived, as you could probably guess by now, that synagogues are there and they're supported by your contributions. I know it sounds like a PBS commercial, but that's really what it is. The Terumah, the portion that you give, and they were giving gold and silver that they had taken from the Egyptians as payment for their 100+ years as slaves. So they were going to give that to the construction of the Mishkan, the gold and the silver that would be melted down and used for like overlay. So, for example, you had the ark into which the Ten Commandments would go, and of course the broken Ten Commandments, we're not there yet in the Torah, that would go after Moshe Rabbeinu came down and saw the golden calf and smashed the first set, so he had to go up and get another one, another set of Ten Commandments of the tablets. And the way that was constructed was kind of in three parts. So you had the ark; it was a wooden outside, and then the inside was inlaid with gold, and then another wooden covering would go in that. So there was like three coverings. The other part, the metal was also used, kind of as the sockets that held the wood together. Now, some people are saying, where'd the wood come from? They're out in the wilderness. We've been out in the Sinai. It's kind of like all desert. Some people say it wasn't always desert, that there were forests and flora out there that they were able to use. Other people say that, when Jacob came to Egypt, he knew that one day they would need wood for all of this, so he had people plant trees, depending on which version you like. Of course, you get two sages, two opinions. Some people say two sages, four opinions. It is what it is. But that is, that's supposedly where the wood came from. And they would make planks, and it was all in the size of cubits. Now, what is a cubit? A cubit means forearm. So basically, a cubit is from your elbow to the tip of the middle finger. It's about 18 inches, 2 feet, somewhere around that. So these planks were however many cubits they were. I forget the exact dimensions, but they were pretty high. And the Mishkan, the tabernacle, this portable put-up tabernacle, if you will, of this temple to Hashem, was done in three parts. So you had the whole outer rim, and then you had an inside, the holy place where you had the altar, and you had some things, and then on the inside, the very inside, you had the Kadosh Kodashim, the Holy of Holies, which is where only the high priest went to make atonement for Yom Kippur. So not only are they putting together the boards, and they had these long poles that would fit into these loops on the bottom, on the middle, and on the top that would kind of hold it, from the wind going in, blowing it. But you also had the sockets on the top that would, connect each board together. And it was kind of a rectangular structure. And then you had different types of curtains. You had the inside curtain that was, kind of woven. It was like a silk, like a weaving. And then you had the outside curtain that was a little bit more hardy. It was made from like goat's hair. So you had all this, and it was, like I said, this portable building that would go in. Now, inside the Mishkan, you would have a table of showbread. You'd have 12 layers, and this is where a loaf of bread, one for each tribe, went, and it would be baked on Friday, and they would take the old loaves that miraculously stayed fresh for the whole week, and the Kohanim would eat that, and on there would be 12 new loaves. You had a table. You had the menorah, and this is not the Chanukiah that we think of. This was a menorah. You had one branch in the middle, and you had three on either side. So you had the Torah on one side, you had the secular pursuits on the other. That's what was the representation. And that was kept burning. You had the altar. It had these horns. They're not quite sure what the horns were for, but that was where the sacrifices went. Had a ramp that went up. You had, I think you had a lamp as well as the menorah. But those were the different types of furniture that went in. So here we have, think of the progression. We had Moses getting the Ten Commandments. Then we had other commandments that were very important, that were vital, that weren't maybe as important as the 10, but this is what we talked about last week, taking care of the people that were vulnerable. And now we have an actual Mishkan. We have an actual building, or a portable building in this case, that is going to house all of that. It's going to Mishkan. Now, so you see we have the laws, then we have a place for the laws. Now, some of you are thinking, well, wait a minute. Doesn't Moses encounter, when he comes down from the Mount Sinai, he sees the golden calf there that they made for an idol, and he smashes the tablets that he had? Yes, but what you're realizing is that the progression of the Torah is not necessarily a chronological progression. One thing didn't happen after another, just like we talked about Jethro. He came and, did he stay for a year? Did Moses go up to the mountain after Jethro had just arrived, or what? So the time is not the same. But the point is that all these laws and the building of the Mishkan is presented in a flow that shows us how everything, how our culture, how our heritage, how our religion is being developed. So some people say that the whole idea of the altar and sacrificing the animals was to wean the Israelites from the paganism that they saw in Egypt, and maybe some of them had, experienced anyway. So because we're getting into this whole idea of just one God. And by the way, I've been asked for some non-Jewish people, why did we stop sacrificing? Because we stopped having a temple when the temple was destroyed. The only place, and God says this, the only place you do the sacrifices is in that Mishkan or in Jerusalem in the temple. Otherwise, no. But we still have our accoutrements. So, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And I also want to say Happy Rosh Chodesh. Tuesday and Wednesday of this month will be the first day of Adar. Now, this is the first Adar. This is a leap year, so we have 2 Adars. So Purim will be in the second Adar because Purim is always 30 days before Passover. When we have the second Adar, it's in that one, so it could be the 30 days. Shabbat Shalom. See you on Shabbat Across America. Thanks again for tuning in.